Someone would like to, I forget this every single time. It's the executive session that needs a vote to open, but I can just open our meeting this morning. Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So 9:30.
Right.
First on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Does someone have a motion, or are there any comments, final comments?
I have some couple of comments, or maybe they were already picked up. Which, no, we had like 3 sets of minutes, right?
Yes.
So the regular executive session, not the special. Let's see. On that one, like in any meetings, we should note down the people that are absent from the meeting. So.
Oh, okay. I was unaware of that. All
I
right.
don't think.
I know I
Right.
didn't see that. I didn't know that.
I see on there, yeah, also that you have Elizabeth Eldon saying aye, and she was not at the
Yeah,
meeting.
that's,
Good point.
that was my next thing, so.
Yeah.
We have to delete that. So that, I think that applies to the public meeting and the executive meeting.
Yes.
So I was at the special one for July 18, but not July 11. Is that what you're saying, Bob? Okay.
Yeah,
I'm-
right. You're listed as voting. Or-
Okay, so here's a question, since this is still fairly new to me. I will make those changes and then they need to go back and be approved, or can I send them to the town after I make these changes?
You can send them to the town after you make the changes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
We're
and then
actually,
it-
we're actually approving it now.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, so when you submit them, it's you submit them as amended is
Okay,
what.
okay.
Good morning, Stefan.
he muted, so.
Hello, Hester. Just observe.
Thank you for coming.
I'd like you all to know that yesterday I ran into our former treasurer, Dina, who wished us well and said she missed being on Hugh Cargill Trust, but she's traveling everywhere now. But she was thrilled that Catherine was treasurer and doing such a good job. Send everybody good wishes.
And
That's great to hear.
I
miss her too.
agree, Catherine's doing a great job.
Yep, absolutely.
On Colin, are you an observer? Colin Reed?
Yes.
No, I'm not auxiliary.
Are
I'm,
you with the, are you the liaison now for the?
for the finance
select
committee.
board, or-
I am on the finance committee. I'm not assigned to yours. I'm here because I just want to talk about the tenant rental assistance program, if you have a moment. But I'm just watching.
Okay,
I'm watching this committee.
Okay.
I
okay, all right, thank
don't
you.
think Cargill has a liaison officially from the FinCom. I'll check in just a moment.
If there are no other comments, can I have a motion to approve the minutes, public July 11, executive session the 11th and the 18th?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
Thank you, Catherine. We heard you. Okay, next on our agenda is the treasurer's report, and this is for July and August.
Yes, July and August. Any comments?
some of the funds, I think, are low. We could discuss the actual figures, I guess. in the executive session, but I plan to, like, for the CMLP. I
Mhm.
plan to, I've already been in touch with David Wood, the director, and I'm gonna send off an email requesting some more funds.
Thank you, Bob. Morning, Terry.
Morning. I have to explain that I'm now a liaison to another committee that has been meeting at 8 o'clock on the same day you meet, and it's supposed to end at 9:30, but usually runs over. So I will be sporadic in my attendance this year.
So you're still our liaison, but the, okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Would it help for us to discuss shifting our meeting half an hour, or do you think it's just every now and then we'll just miss you?
I don't think we should make it later than 9:30.
Okay,
I think
I
that's
don't think you should change your schedule for me.
okay. Thank you. Any other comments on the treasurer's report? If not, we can have a motion to approve it.
so
I-
moved to approve.
Second.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So the first item on our agenda of new business is the Tax Relief Committee. Denny and Eric and Jack, who are on that committee, have discussed including it, having it become one of our responsibilities. It's really the annual letter each year that's the current activity. And so just, people's thoughts about that. And it would require a Board of Selectmen, a select board vote, which Shannon is looking into getting
Yeah,
on there.
if you guys would like, I also just put in a little amendment to the charge. If you'd like, I can share my screen so you guys can see what that would look like in your charge.
Thank you, that'd be great.
All right, 1 second. So you should be able to see my screen. I'll enlarge the size. And it's this 5.5 that's in red. And that's pretty much verbatim taken out of the Tax Relief Committee's charge and just adding it as one more duty for the Hugh Cargill Trust.
Does that mean they're no longer gonna do what they're doing? 'Cause
That's
that-
correct.
they're-
They are looking to disband their committee because they really they don't meet except for just before the annual appeal. So because the Hugh Cargill Trust is already involved with the annual appeal, we were just thinking that this is something that could officially be taken over by the Hugh Cargill Trust. And yeah, otherwise they really don't meet, and the tax relief is already administered by the Hugh Cargill Trust.
I know, but I hate to see them go because they're such, Denny is such a great campaigner, to get.
Yeah, I
the
don't
fund.
think, I wish Denny was here, but I don't think that this necessarily means that she will no longer be a campaigner for the group. But just that she would be doing this as a resident advocate rather than on an official committee.
She did a lot of work behind the scenes as well, so, as far as getting printing done and all. So I guess that would all fall in our hands, so.
Yeah, well, you still have me, so it can fall into my hands. But I mean, I think this makes more sense because even I will say I found it confusing when I came on board here that the tax relief was not administered by the Tax Relief Committee, but administered by the Hugh Cargill Trust Committee. It just seemed a little confusing to me because really the Tax Relief Committee isn't very active. They just were active in the fundraising, but we were thinking that this would make more sense.
I think it makes sense. It simplifies. It makes us our work, it increases our work, but it brings it all back to where probably it should be. So I'm all for it. We'll just have to work a little harder in December to get those letters out.
Yeah, and I can definitely help with that.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense also for the town, for citizens to understand.
Mhm.
I
Terry
remember-
has her hand up.
Yes, I think this is a great idea. I think it is confusing the way it is, and I want to thank Shannon for taking the initiative to put this together, and for volunteering to help this committee. Thanks a lot, Shannon. I think that's great. I also have a related question that, Elizabeth, you might not want to take up now, maybe later, but there's another program that may be coming to the Hugh Cargill as well. It was brought up last night at the select board. Yeah, Lucy's nodding. And I don't know if you plan to talk about that today anyway, about the rental assistance.
Well, I think Carolyn would like to speak to that because it's her proposal. And I think, that's why she's here. And I think she's got a very good idea. So under new business, I think we should let Carolyn.
Okay, under new business, thanks.
Yeah.
I was going to have that under the communications section of continuing business because I've seen the emails moving
Gotcha.
around.
It's really a new business kind of.
Yes, it would have been better, and I apologize, to have listed it under new business, and just to be sure, Shannon, we're following protocol. Something that comes up in the meeting like this, and because someone's here to talk about it? Or does it have to be on the agenda in advance and posted? And I don't know the rules.
I mean, I think that this could be covered in the communications because communications is a pretty broad topic.
I think so too, yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. So we will pick that up under. I have a note for that to bring it up, so. So just to circle back on this idea, the language that's being added to our charge and the movement of those responsibilities. Or can we just, through our discussion, because we've already pretty much discussed our support for it, is that enough?
I think just having your support is important because it's really, we need to first get the approval of the select board, I think, to disband the tax relief committee. And then what would be coming forth from the Hugh Cargill Trust would be amending your charge with how I had presented it to you guys.
Do you think that I should, can that, go ahead, Bob.
I was just gonna say, the select board has to approve this, is that correct? The final selection, but if we have some additional input to what you're proposing, then we should do it now, I guess.
Yeah, so I would say the committee should take a vote on the amended charge. That is how you would like the amendments to be, but otherwise I think that's the only vote that's necessary from you at this time.
That makes a lot of sense. So we would.
I was there was a lot of verbiage in there, but I didn't get a chance to read, but I was just wondering, could we just like next meeting? Do we have enough time if we just go for the next meeting?
I don't think we need another meeting. It's pretty straightforward, and Shannon took the language from the tax relief funds, the committee's, their own charge, so we're.
Yeah, this is the first time I've seen it. Was that distributed or? before?
No, it wasn't. No, it's now. So we would be requesting the select board to,
You're, you can't, you're frozen or something. Can't hear you, Elizabeth.
is this any better? I took my video away.
Yes.
Yes.
Start over because we couldn't hear what you said. Still can't.
Huh.
Educated.
Okay, well, if I can say anything, if you guys don't want to approve it now, the only downside that you're going to have is there's only one select board meeting in September
Yeah,
because of Labor Day. So I
okay.
anticipate that it will be a pretty crowded meeting agenda. But the next select board meeting is on the 28th. So yes, like I said, I took this language right from the tax relief committee's current charge. But I do think that, Bob, if you had anything that you wanted to add now, we could do that now, and then the motion could be made.
I'm just reading it now, just. Okay. I mean, it looks pretty straightforward, I guess, so. And we'll have to start sending notices out too, I mean, requests soon after, like, in probably November, so.
Right, it sneaks up pretty fast, the annual appeal.
Okay, so now what this is going into this is amending our, what's this amending? What's the,
This is amending the Hugh Cargill Trust Committee charge.
okay, all right. Yeah, I guess I don't have any problem with it.
So Elizabeth says that her internet has failed. Bob, would you take over?
Okay, so is she able to vote? I guess not. Well, is there any further discussion on this item other than me?
Hester, I just have a question. Does this mean that we have the chance to write the letter? Or is it a standard letter that we
Yeah.
can't play around with?
Well,
It shouldn't be a standard letter. It should be not the same letter every year. I mean, I think it's just a communication with the community. This is who we are, who we serve, what our responsibilities are, and we're asking for your support for tax
Right.
relief and
No, I
for.
know, I read it every year, but I've always thought the letter would be improved by including a couple of stories.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a form letter.
Okay.
Elizabeth just wrote and said, could she participate by text? So
I don't know about that. I don't know if that would
it's
if
like,
that would fly with open meeting law.
she could call in, like the number, she
Yeah.
could go on the phone. There's
Yeah.
a phone number, right?
Yeah.
okay, I'm telling her that.
She goes into the notice. I mean,
Okay. Okay, I just let her know.
that's usually me that's got all the problems.
I mean, I think looking at this paragraph, I think it makes perfect sense for us to be the advocates for what we do. And I think the letter should come from us, and I think we should do the whole, I think that's totally appropriate and meaningful to the community. So,
Well, we do participate every year in the letter, so it's not
but
like.
it's still not our verbiage, it's not really from us. So I think this is important for us to do.
All right, so I'm gonna wait a little, see if Elizabeth can come in on the phone. I'm not sure if she can. But is there any other discussion about this? None? Okay, yeah. I guess rather than hold, we have the quorum, so we could go ahead and someone make a motion to approve the change to our charge.
I
I make
move,
a motion
go ahead.
to approve the charge as submitted by Shannon.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye.
So I just heard from Elizabeth, who said Shannon's email only has a Zoom link. What is the phone link?
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought it did, huh?
So maybe Shannon, you could.
Yes,
Yeah. I'll
here she
try
is.
to-
She's there.
Okay.
Hi, I don't know what's
Hi,
happening.
Elizabeth.
Yep, so hopefully this will work.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We just approved the amendment to the charge.
Terrific. That's great. So then the September I was able to hear you until all of a sudden everything ended. So the select board will look at it at their September meeting?
I will propose this to the chair for the August 28th meeting.
Good.
Oh, great.
So
Awesome.
for the minutes, Elizabeth, did you vote on this in the end or no?
I did not.
Okay.
And
But
if
at our
I could just provide a quick update on the House earmark, I have another meeting at 10, but I would like to give you guys an update on that.
Okay.
yes, please. Yeah, go for it.
So the budget was signed last week, but the governor has 10 days to go through the budget line by line and veto anything that she may wish to. But so that period will end on the 10th, but the earmark that was requested by Rep. Cataldo was in the budget that was approved by the legislators. So things are looking pretty good for that. We'll just have the official okay on the 10th.
Shannon, I just one quick thing on that. I don't know if I got an answer, like legally, if we accept these funds, are we obliged to accept anybody for?
I haven't gotten an answer yet on this either, because I think people are waiting for the budget to be officially official.
Okay.
But it does the exact language for the line item says for Concord. So I'm thinking it will just be for Concord residents. But I think they're waiting to give me an answer until everything is definitely approved.
Shannon, what is the official name of this? So I get it right?
So it's listed on the agenda as the House budget earmark requested by State Representative Cataldo.
Okay.
But yes, things are looking, I would say, very likely that it will be received.
And my only concern was like whether we'd open it up to other.
Yeah,
Town.
I don't think that will be necessary, but I think they're waiting to give me an answer until it's all set.
Shannon, what is this for again?
So Representative Cataldo requested a $5,000 earmark for the Hugh Cargill Trust, and
Okay.
it is as of now included in the budget, but we just need to wait for the final signature.
Terry, one of my concern was, it's coming from the state, so would be unrestricted funds if it's coming from the state. That was my concern.
Right, I think we'll have to see what the final language is after it's approved.
Okay,
Okay, well, I have to head to this 10 o'clock, but thank you guys.
Shannon,
Thank you.
one on the tax relief list. I know everybody's paid their taxes now, I guess. So
Yeah,
we're all set with that.
Yeah, there were only a couple more people that submitted an application late that were previously on our FY23 list. But Bob, I can send you an updated list today just so you can see, but it's about the same.
Okay. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah.
Since we did take something out of order, I thought maybe we could take the question about supporting the rental community out of order. That way Carlin can share with us now and we can discuss now. And then if you want to stay for the rest of our meeting, you're very welcome to.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. Carlin Reed, 83 Wits End. I've been talking with Lucy about, I thought it was creating a tenant rental assistance program. And lo and behold, she's told me we've already been doing that. For the last 15 months, we helped 10 people, 10 households to the tune of over $6,000, which was really great, but I didn't know it was already in existence. Now, I had heard that, the concept originally from a meeting at the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust on August 1st. They had received a proposal, which I didn't know about at the time. It came from Bonnie Wilbur and the Community Services Department of the town, requesting $50,000 for a tenant rental assistance program to be run by the Regional Housing Services Office, the RHSO. Liz Rust, as you know, is the gal who runs that organization. I've put in a call into Liz. I'll be talking with her hopefully today about this proposal and also talking to Bonnie. At the Housing Trust meeting that just now finished, no, I'm sorry, it's a CHDC meeting just finished. Keith Bergman, who is chair of the Housing Trust, indicated that he wasn't sure he was supportive of the tenant rental assistance program because, and this is what he said, because it was not envisioned in the housing production plan. Okay, now you know what that housing production plan is. I haven't clarified that statement, but what I'm reading is that it sounds kind of complicated. And I'm not sure Bonnie talked to the Regional Housing Service Officer, Liz Rust, about it before submitting the application, and it seems like more work, and maybe not. So last night at the select board meeting, I stood up and made a 3-minute presentation. Lucy was there watching me. That encouraged the select board to support a $50,000 allocation from the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust for housing rental to the, sorry, Elizabeth, to the Hugh Cargill Trust for their operation. So I have Hugh Cargill run it. And the response I got, and you can, if you watch when the video is posted later today, you'll see it. It starts at the very beginning. I'm the first and only public comment. It's a short piece. The response I got from Henry Day in the chair seemed very positive. At least that was my read. Lucy, is that the impression you got too?
Yes, it is. And I think it makes, well, I think it makes perfect sense, your proposal. So I don't know, what do you were there, Terry?
Well, I think it was a little bit, I think it sounded like a great program. However, it was not on our agenda. It came in as public comment, so we couldn't really discuss it and take a formal position. And now hearing this from about Keith Bergman, I'm sure we'd want to get more detail on what the Housing Trust would do, you know, whether Liz Rust would charge more. We have a contract with her and she has very specific duties. And so would this cost the town to hire her to administer? So there's certain questions now that are coming up. So I think the selectmen thought it was a great idea, but we could not and did not have a formal discussion or vote on it.
And that's completely fair, Terry. I did not expect a formal give and take on that. It was quite.
One thing that I would like to clarify in your comments from last night, Carlin, that unfortunately well, we didn't have time to put it in. We had many more applications for rent relief than the 10 households we supported over that particular 15-month period, because we have to make choices for other expenditures that are more critically important. I mean, rent's pretty important, but so is everything else. So actually, we could have supported many more households in rent relief. And it's just a question by our mission where we are limited in the amount of money we can give any household. So we have to decide what's most important as well as the.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense. The other point I wanted to say is later in the meeting, Linda Escobedo, who was on the call, mentioned that there were over 900 households that might be eligible for rental assistance. I was estimating 170 because that's how many who are enrolled in the Light Plants residential rate assistance program. But I trust Linda's judgment more than ours. Now, here's the real question I want to ask you folks. I see that in paragraph 5.4 of your charge, rent assistance is one already contained as something that you can do, and you have been doing. If you got $50,000 or some amount, any amount, it might reduce it down to 25 South, who knows what. Would you be willing to do this?
Well, that is a really important point, because if we're limited to our $1,000 a year, roughly, more or less, per household, but we had the money, the funding to support more rent relief. I mean, I think it would be important to do it, you know, and so I think that would have to change our charter a bit to allow us access to that fund to help people with this important need.
I have a question. Can you, I don't know if you can hear me, but I have a question.
Yes, Elizabeth.
Okay, so the regional housing services that's run by Liz Rust is multiple communities, not just Concord. And it has some pretty specific criteria and definitions around the support.
Right.
So, and I don't want to make any modifications to that program.
Right.
I feel that the fact that the Hugh Cargill Trust Committee is granting support for rent, I don't want to take that away, and the amount that we're allowed based on our charge isn't at the same level of support that the Regional Housing Services Group can do. So I feel like these two roles can still remain separate. So my question is, has the Regional Housing Services Group had any, I guess there must be other things happening in other communities similar to ours. Do we know whether Sudbury, for example, has a program that has some rental assistance, and how does it fit in or communicate with the Regional Housing Services Group? It's, I guess it's a question and a concern. The question is, I would like a lot more information on what other communities are doing, and a concern that we would be sharing a responsibility, which I think would dilute the effectiveness. Anyway,
I totally agree. I think it's not necessary for Regional Housing Services to administer this program. I think it could be administered by Hugh Cargill, by Shannon, by Bonnie Wilbur. I'm not sure why we want to have regional housing administer it. Also, I just want to clarify something Carlin just said. I believe Linda last night said there are 900 rental units in town. And out of those 900, 170 is her estimate for those who might need rental assistance based on the CMLP data.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate that clarification. Okay, my personal feeling, and I haven't talked to Liz or to Bonnie yet, but like I say, I'm going to, is I think it'd be there'd be less overhead involved, less complication, if the funding came into the Hugh Cargill Trust.
Right.
But
Yes.
it means more work for you folks
Right.
because you've got to deal with this.
It does,
I,
it doesn't mean more work for us actually, but we are limited in the support we can provide. So we might have, we will have more applicants. But we are still limited in the program, in our chart.
But
I, I
I-
would, oh,
I
would
feel
this involve,
left out. But I feel left out of this whole thing. I have no clue what you're talking about. So I feel like we need to discuss. I know I saw like one email about it, but there must be a lot of other communications that's happening that, I mean, I'm not aware of. Maybe all the others. I might have had my head in the sand, but I'm not sure what. Sounds like we need to. I'd like to hear more about what this program. It's the first time I'm hearing about all of this. So I don't know how everybody else feels. Maybe you're Lucy. You might be up to date, or you've been talking, but I don't know any. I only saw like one email, and that was it. And I have no idea what you're talking about at this point.
Okay, I can send some more information to you, Bob. That's easy to do. Someone else wanted to ask a question. Catherine, was it you?
I just wanted to say as treasurer, I'd be interested to know, would this be a separate account? Would it be handled something like the tax relief fund? And as a Hugh Cargill Trust Committee, I wouldn't want to be making the decisions on who gets this. I think this would need, who gets this aid, I think it would need to have someone who's much closer to the housing, people in the housing community that are requesting, like the tax relief, there would be some criteria rather than just our discussing briefly at the executive session. So those would be my questions.
Good questions. I think from the housing trust perspective, if I were sitting on that trust, I want to say, okay, if we're going to give you some funds for the housing trust, I want to make sure these are used for housing issues, not for electricity bills, not for fuel assistance, but dedicated for housing, which would be rental assistance. So, but that might be the only qualification that I can think of at this point.
Would that be like on a monthly basis that we doled out once person's qualified, then they get it every month?
Well, let me ask you this. How do you decide now? I don't need to know the answer, but think about how you've already made that kind of decision. Lucy, you've got a comment.
Well, it's not an ongoing support. In fact, we have an applicant that I will raise at our executive session. This is every so often, as it appears that people are feeling the crunch. And so this month they request help with their rent. And they may not again for a year or ever, but they may be in great stress. We evaluate their income and their circumstance, and we decide if this is a worthy use of our funds. I think it is. Landlords can be pretty unforgiving, and I think it's something we could administer pretty easily. And as we have several categories already, silent fund, et cetera, it could be a separate. So if Catherine gets, we approve 3 applicants in a month, she draws it out of those accounts. And I don't see how it would really change much, except that I think we could revisit, and this is a much bigger discussion. If we have access to that kind of funding, we shouldn't try to draw it down, but we should maybe think about how our limit of $1,000 a year per household could maybe be expanded with an addendum about rent subsidy. So
I think we're also charged to, I have a concern that this is changing our charge, which is a pretty big deal, because our job is, or sometimes the way that we, sorry for the mess, this whole internet thing is confusing me. Part of our responsibility when we're evaluating a candidate is the degree to which we are helping them get back on their feet. It's not an ongoing support. They've
Right.
had some type of an urgent or significant financial event, and they are struggling, and we are helping them get back on track. So the fact that we do not provide ongoing support is a key part of our charge. And so I don't want to leave that out of our conversation. It isn't just the annual limit.
That was my concern as well, Elizabeth. Thank you for, in other words, this would be like a continual thing, which is not what we do.
I don't think it should be continual, no. But I mean, most people who apply for help, it's not on a continuing basis. They need it
Right.
this month to meet.
I'm talking about the other issue that the RHS, whatever the fund, like the funding, where does that come from, the funding?
The funding source, and by the way, it would come from the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. They currently have just a little over $3 million in their account, and they're considering on August 16 how to spend it. That's really the key pushing for this particular piece. August 16 is the Housing Roundtable. There's a chart of proposed uses. And Bob, I think I have your email. I'll send you what they've proposed. And it shows that one piece is for tenant repairs by the Concord Housing Development Corp. Another is a piece for the tenant assistance program. Another is for Assabet Bluff. Another piece for a lot of the housing projects. So that's the funding source is from the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. And it would go, I would think, to the Hugh Cargill Trust as far as the transfer. But August is the presentation.
Is that a Concord organization, the municipal? Okay.
We as taxpayers have been contributing to it for the last couple of years. And I think it's a very well-run program. It's at a deciding point now. It's okay, we've got this much money. How are we going to spend it? Now,
everybody else have, anybody else want this information besides me?
Yes, I do.
I'll send
Yes.
it. I'll send you out a packet. And
Carlin,
Yes.
how about you send it to Shannon and ask her to distribute it to the committee members?
that's also okay.
I think it's a much bigger conversation, a much bigger conversation, because there's other programs like Section 8. There's ways to qualify the need. There's the concept of if the funds are significant, the opportunity for more continual support. There's just a lot of questions here, and I think it's a great idea. Whether it's Hugh Cargill umbrella I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much. If you want to tune into the August 16 Housing Roundtable, it's online. It'll be 7 p.m. and it's going to be interesting. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Carolyn, just one more. Can you repeat that, please? August 16, 7 p.m. And what is the name of the?
It's the Concord Housing Roundtable. The agenda should be posted shortly.
Thank you.
All the housing groups, the CHDC, CMAT, CMAHT, the Concord Housing Authority, Concord Housing Foundation, and a bunch of others attached onto it who relate to it, including the planning board, select board, whoever else wants to show up. But it's a public meeting, so I encourage you to attend. It'll be good. Thank you very much for the time and the information. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Carlin. Okay, so I'm going to add it as a new business item for more discussion. And hopefully prior to our next meeting, we'll have materials from Shannon that we can take a look at. And I will try to attend that August 16 roundtable to learn more about it. Okay. I don't know about you, but I am in an incredible storm at my house
Yes.
right now.
Absolutely. It's lightning.
Okay. Yes, it's really, I mean, it's rumbling, and so I just hope that our internet all works. Okay. Just taking a note here for new business next month. Okay, so the next item on our new business agenda, and thank you for postponing it from last month, was around confidentiality. I am curious about the process of, and this is really for everybody, but when we hear from someone who has a need, the method that we maintain their confidentiality, like how do we advocate for the person? Do we tell them, here are all the places that, like, I guess it's also a question for Bonnie or for Lucy or other groups. Is it entirely on the applicant to advocate for themselves through whatever resources are available? Do we do that for them? Like, how does that work?
I can answer that.
Okay.
So, I get a request from someone, a phone call, or an email. It might have originated through Council on Aging or Bonnie or a church or a school or a community chest or St. Vincent de Paul or many other sources. We, in all of these organizations, we talk and we have confidentiality, but we try to find solutions for funding, what would be most appropriate and effective. And if we can combine forces, we do. We don't talk outside of those organizations about people, but we do collaborate and we do share names. And like someone this morning, I was going to get in touch with Council on Aging, one of the social workers, to talk about a client that had approached me. So it's confidential within the town, people who are charged to provide guidance and support and mentorship and funding. That's how I would answer it. But we don't talk about it outside. If I saw someone on the street, I wouldn't say, oh, what about so-and-so who had their car fixed? We just don't do that.
And how does a new person understand that process? Like if they go speak to Bonnie, for example, does Bonnie say, these are the different organizations I'm going to speak with about you. It is entirely confidential among these organizations. Does the new person understand that those conversations are going to happen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, and any one of us can direct to any other organization. And we always say confidentiality is right at the top. So, you know, I can think of one instance where we have an applicant where it's very, very sensitive. Actually, there's several where nobody's supposed to know anything about it, but actually we're sharing with one or two other sources of funding so we can meet the needs of these people. And you know, it's very tender. They're actually very anxious to tell us what the problem is and seeking help, because they don't come to us until things are pretty bad. But we do share and pass along, you know, to each other.
Have you ever had somebody say, don't tell anyone, I need this help. I just want you, Lucy, to approach Hugh Cargill? Or people usually, I mean, I don't know why this has just been on the confidentiality element. And, you know, we are discussing it through public meeting right now, how much it keeps coming up on our forms or the way in which we present what the committee does. But we don't really have any clarity, and for me anyway, in how that gets executed. So I think I'm understanding much more, Lucy, from your explanation. Thank you.
Was
Well-
there an incident that you're basing your comments on, Elizabeth, or?
I've just conversations with people about becoming a member of the committee and how much does that. So when I was on the planning board, this would come up a lot for an architect. Like if I'm on the planning board now, I won't be able to represent my client for this particular project. So not really like a conflict of interest, but just, well, yes, a little bit of a conflict of interest. Like, how does that impact my relationships with the people in my community? Like, what does that confidential element mean? Very informal. It's not like there's been a complaint or a, a specific issue.
So I see people out and about in Concord that we have supported, and we speak to each other very friendly. We never say a word about having helped or anything. We're just very pleasant. I have people under police protection that are actually, there are 2 or 3 sources that we discuss how we're going to help a person, but it's very confidential. And the person knows that, they trust us. They know we're not sharing information that we shouldn't. So it's, all I can say is that we're semi-professional counselors, and we do a very good job of protecting people's privacy. And it's a small town, so we see these people there. I see them all
Right.
in the grocery store, everywhere. And, it's always, hi, Lucy, and I'll say hello, whatever their name is. But we don't, we might squeeze a cantaloupe together, but we don't ever talk about anything that, so it's very confidential. I have no concerns whatsoever that things are getting out in the public that shouldn't.
Anyone else have questions or? Yes.
Hester, I just have a question about a different kind of confidentiality. I didn't know exactly what this conversation was going to include. And my question, being new to the committee, has to do with the information that is shared within the committee at the executive session, and how sort of decisions are made about how much or how little to share at those meetings.
Some things I do not share at the meeting. So I learn a lot more about people than I share with the committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when the information that I'm sharing in executive session is so because of my real estate background, I can collect a lot of that sort of information. It's all public information. There isn't anything I'm sharing that is a private matter.
Okay, that answers the question.
Yeah, and Hester, thank you, because some of this also originated from when I was first joining the committee and sort of getting my bearings about the role and the responsibilities. It's very important the way we maintain the confidentiality of our applicants. So I just kind of wanted to visit the topic.
So
Okay.
confidentiality has one other small point, and I don't know if it's on the agenda. I don't have the agenda in front of me, but and that is when people make contributions to Hugh Cargill Trust, I think we should all know who those people are. And I'm saying that for a reason. My son gave a generous contribution to Hugh Cargill Trust in December. And he recently said, "Mom, did you ever know that I said, "No, nobody ever told me." And, of course I would have wanted to thank him immediately. And, we know these people in town who really admire our work. And I think if there's a chance to say thank you in public, apart from our thank you letter, which is formal and we all sign it, but that's like a tax letter. It's not from the heart letter of an individual to another who's really cares about what we do. So I just think that list should be available to all of us, so we in our own way can thank people for support.
Lucy, is that something you would, we could share at the executive session? Because I get that information, I get the names of people who have made contributions in the treasurer's report.
I think that
so maybe going forward, I will get the list. I also would like to see, I don't think we're sending out letters. I wanted to ask Shannon, but she's not here. I don't know if we're sending letters to people who make donations after the big push of the annual appeal. They come in dribs and drabs, and there were quite a few. I looked back, and there were quite a few after the town annual meeting, and I don't know that those have been acknowledged. So that is
There-
something I'm going to add for next month. And
Good.
so,
They're acknowledged by the town, but I think we need to do something like you're bringing up, Catherine, that people, that when they donate later after the big crunch, I think it's just sort of like generally like a form letter back to the town. When a lot of them were signing, thank yous ourselves, personally, of the people that we know. And
so this may be something, if I get Shannon to prepare those letters, then we can just sign them. If we know the person, then we can sign and write a little note, or so it comes from someone on the committee. Does that sound appropriate?
yeah,
So
I
we
think,
do that with once a year. So this past year, Bob and I signed that big push, the annual appeal. And my assumption-
Did you sign the thank you letters, the acknowledgements?
yes,
Yep, we would go in once a week for a couple of weeks and sign a big stack of, thank you notes, letters, and if we knew the person, we would put a personal note with it. We don't do that the rest of the year, but I think we should. I think it's a great idea. Why not once a month?
Have Shannon,
Sure, yeah, that would be terrific.
all right. And I can share the names that are, oh, Terry?
Catherine, I thought I heard you say that you're going to share the donor names at the executive session meeting. Did you say that?
Yes.
I was wondering if that would be appropriate.
No, you would have to do that in the open meeting. If there's nothing confidential, if a donor is anonymous, then you just say anonymous. But the donor names are all public on that letter, right? I've seen the list of names.
yeah.
So you can't do it at executive session. You have to do it at the open session.
Okay, or we can just go into the townhouse once a month and go through them.
Right.
Yeah,
All right,
I just
So-
think
Go ahead.
we're such a small organization and so important. And I think it's a heartfelt contribution. So I think that any way we can show our appreciation is very important. So it's not
Lu-
just official. That's,
Lucy, did your son get any acknowledgement at all? Or no?
I think he might have, but I'm sure he did, but I never was told, and here his name is the same name and there aren't any. So I was really upset about that.
Yeah,
And I said, I'm going to make sure that I know who is all the people who are giving so that I can personally thank them, because that's how much I care about Hugh Cargill Trust.
now every year there's a list, that that even sent out with the letters, of the people, previous donors. So there's nothing secret about it. The donors,
Okay.
we really want to, emphasize how appreciative we are, but with their names. So unless they say anonymous, so.
Right.
okay,
Can I make a proposal?
sure.
I would propose that on a monthly basis, Shannon prepares thank you letters for whatever donations came in that month. And that they be, she notifies us and we go in and personally look through the letters and we sign them. And if it's someone that we know, we can make a note of specific, let them, we make our own personal note to them on that letter, but we can all sign those letters once a month. I don't think that's a big ask. And I think it's important.
Okay.
What do the rest of the committee think about that? A monthly, down to the townhouse, sign some thank you notes.
So I was thinking to talk with Shannon, tell her what's going on. I don't want to make a motion that you do this without her consent,
Okay, I mean, I can check with her. I'm sure she's preparing the letters. Perhaps she's not doing
she is,
them monthly. Yeah, so if she just puts them
does.
aside and lets us sign them, I don't think that adds work to her. But I can certainly check with her before implementing that. Why don't we put it on the agenda for next month? That way she's here, we chat about it, we vote. It's a pretty quick conversation.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Okay, the next item of new business is we had an emergency meeting. And we've talked about having emergency meetings, and there's definitely a need on a, very infrequent occasion for an emergency executive session meeting. I put this on the agenda, a criteria for these meetings, because I feel like it needs to have some type of, does the situation, some way of measuring whether the situation warrants it, and I don't want it to be something that's entirely on one member of the committee, which currently, Lucy, you're the one that, manages these situations. So I just wondered if we could have a brief conversation about, when we decide to have an emergency executive meeting, what is the definition of emergency? And I think it would be good to just come up with some very simple criteria for that.
Elizabeth, there's a definition right in the law. I mean, when you're talking about emergency, are you saying that you're not going to do the 48-hour posting?
No. This is where we have applicants that in some cases, they have to wait 30 days for our next meeting,
Yeah.
and they don't have 30 days. And so the meeting that we had was, Lucy initiated the need for the meeting. We posted it. It was all, we had minutes for it. We did everything according to the law.
Okay. That's
Yep,
not,
it's that type of, yeah.
okay, you might want to use a different term. Is there an emergency?
Okay,
If
urgent. If we
Yeah,
have an
urgent.
applicant with an urgent need.
Yeah. And if you ever
Okay.
have one that you have to do in less than 48 hours, then you have to meet all these criteria. But yeah, I don't think you're talking about that. So urgent.
No, we aren't talking. Thank you for the clarification. So this would be, how do we make a call on having an an applicant with an urgent need that can't wait until our next meeting?
Okay, may I speak to the one we just recently had? So I've been doing this for about 4 years. I have no idea how long I've been doing it. This is the only time that I asked for this meeting, and it was a medical situation. There were other funders, and the medical procedure would not have taken place without advance approval. And so there were several of us, several organizations contributing to this need, but they wouldn't go ahead until they had a full vote and confidence that the check would be arriving. And so, we were asked to participate. It was something that was very important. And so once in 4 years, I said, I think we need to do this. And the appointment had been made. The medical team ended up doing a lot of it in the car, if you can believe. It was such a terrible situation. But we were able to fulfill part of the obligation. So I felt really that this was urgent. It would not be abused. I mean, that's once in 4 years. So if somebody is overdue, too bad. That's not, we're not going to do that.
And I completely trust you, Lucy. And this is why it worked this time, because it's you that's been in the role and made that call for something that was a medical emergency with advanced approval or payment required. That makes sense to me. I am a very systems brain, so I also like to look at the structure of things. And when it isn't someday in the future, when it isn't going to be you, I think it's important we have some type of a framework that the person in that, well, not just the intake person, but all committee members follow some type of definition of what does it mean to have an urgent need for support prior to our next meeting. It's really this prior to our next meeting. And perhaps maybe I'm making a big deal out of something that doesn't need to be clarified. And I certainly want people's, contribution to that conversation. I don't have any issue whatsoever with the way it was handled. I really, really appreciate that you were able to bring us all together to make that decision for this applicant.
So I'm going to give you another example, which didn't rise to that level, but it was pretty close to me. And that was, we had an applicant who has a number of children, single parent who works down in Quincy or someplace down there. And she needed before and after school care. And she was on the list at Concord Rec. And I said, would you hold her place? This is something, I'm one vote on the committee, but it's likely that we would support it, but I can't say we would because I'm one vote. And they would not hold the spot. And she almost lost it. It would have impacted her employment. So I went to all the other funders in town and managed to get them to step in and do it. But they would not even hold it for 24 hours, this wait list position. And, I felt really badly because this woman tries so hard to support her family and she's got this job and she's very responsible, but without that, care before and after school, things would have fallen apart. But I did call a meeting. I managed to get other funders in town to step in an emergency, and they had emergency meetings and they funded it.
So if
Yeah,
that hadn't happened, sorry, go ahead, Catherine. Thank you.
I think one distinction might be something like if somebody's electricity is going to be shut off, I would say that's not this doesn't rise to a special meeting because they have known their electricity was going to be cut off for months.
Agreed.
And this is something that the person doing it has done everything they can. It's unexpected. It's necessary. I don't know if we can write a list of rules for this, Elizabeth, but we can talk about why one would be and one would not. So.
I agree. I think we have to rely a lot on the intake person who up in the front line. And Lucy's been doing a great job with that. So I think we would be alerted, but I would think like the town social services would be somebody that, be made aware of and take the lead with the person, that they have access to all the same organizations that we have and even more maybe. So I think that person, if they were not working with the town, should we should help that way. But if maybe they didn't get along with whoever was administering their case or so forth, but I think the first line would be the town social services or COA, I would think.
Well, that's absolutely true, but they pass it on. So we're collaborating. That's just what I'd like to say. Where it comes from, where it goes, it's like a big circle. We're all working together to help people. And so, we do have calls back and forth, and we're stepping in where we can, and they all know that we meet monthly. So we all do what we can, and Community Chest certainly jumps in. And so I think that's really all that needs to be said. I don't think we can make a hard and fast rule. If there's an emergency, we're all on it. Everybody, we're all trying to make something happen. And in this case, with this particular person, it was a long time person, and we got it done. So anyway.
Terry, do you have like definition of emergency versus urgent? Is there a definition? Do you know?
There's a definition for emergency. For urgent, you can do whatever you want. Just post it within 48 hours, you're all set. You can have any definition that you guys want. But an emergency is more like, I think like, remember we had that tornado in town? And the electricity and the public safety and everything was, you know, and so if you need like an emergency appropriation to get the crews out because things are really crashing down and you know, there's a very specific definition for that in the law.
So there's no 48-hour like restriction on that or something.
For the urgent,
For the emergency, there's no,
emergency, right, there's in the law, it's chapter 30A, I can find it if you want, and it says, I mean, so I think it's possible that you could have one, like if there was, let's say, a life and death, somebody was talking about the medical people who were working on someone in the car, you know, if you needed to have a meeting that day to approve the funding, because someone's life was at stake, I mean, I could find that definition for you if you want, or you can just Google Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, I think is the open meeting law, and it has the, or talk to Kari, the town clerk, if you really
okay,
know, and the emergency provisions are spelled out.
okay. Thank you.
So just in summary, I feel like we've revisited the situation's characteristics, and that going forward, it's such an infrequent situation and not something that can be, you know, defined in advance, that we can leave the system working the way that it does.
Yep.
That's sort of
Great.
what I've heard everyone say. Okay,
Yes.
great. That's great. Okay, continuing business, tax relief update. Bob?
Well, I did, I don't know if you heard me discuss with Shannon before she left. So I think there are a couple of stragglers, but everybody should have paid their taxes by now. So,
Right.
and Shannon's going to update me on the list. I know there was one, sad to say, one death of somebody that was on the list. So I was going to talk with Shannon as well on that. So, but I think there haven't been any new applicants that I know of, unless she's gotten some just within the last week. So right now there are like, I believe there are like 63 applicants on the list. So.
Okay, thank you. Well, that pretty much sums up our meeting, because the last two we already chatted about earlier in the meeting. If someone could make a motion to adjourn to our executive session.
I have one thing, Elizabeth, I'd like to add for
yes.
next month
Sure.
is a discussion of the Concord Cares account. That account is getting low, and I got some information from Bonnie Wilbur about that's the one that's used for help with heating oil. And I have some historical information on it from Bonnie, and we should discuss whether or not in the past we did do some fundraising for that, and whether or not we want to take that on, or how possibly we can handle the Concord Cares under the Hugh Cargill Trust, but we should talk about that account. So I will forward you before the next meeting what Bonnie had sent me about the history of that account.
So the question is a conversation about whether to merge that with the trust account or do some fundraising for it. And then in the meantime, we'll have the history from Bonnie.
I'll have the history from Bonnie. I think the one thing that it does is Bonnie can access that without having to go through our meetings, which,
Right.
So we, let's just talk about it. I'm just delving into it for the first time.
All right, great. Thank you for sending that around to us, and I'll add that for next month. Well, Stefan, thank you for being at our meeting this month. We like having the public.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's informative and interesting, and I'm glad you're so welcoming. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye. This was a pretty awesome meeting. We went into a lot of very important topics. Yeah, usually it's much quicker, so it's very good for me too. All right, Catherine. Oh, sorry, Bob.
We have to move to close the meeting.
Yes, I think Catherine has the language for that.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 10:45 from open session to executive session for the purpose of discussing individuals or families seeking assistance, the disclosure of which would be a violation of privacy. Is there a second?
Second.
And all in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone. Nice to see you, Terry.